Welcome everybody to Boston 911 Truth. We're having a very special meeting tonight with the PAPA team. PAPA stands for Protecting All Protectors Alliance. And they've all just returned to their various homelands from the Orlando NFPA conference, reaching out to firefighters from all over the country and then actually worldwide, but mostly in the USA, regarding Building 7 and the NIST report. So they're here tonight to give us a very important update on how everything went at the NFPA conference in Orlando.
There's some history here that you guys might want to be aware of. This set of events started 4 years ago with the awareness that the National Fire Protection Association was meeting in Boston, the home turf of Boston 911 Truth. And the Boston 911 Truth says, we got to do something. We got to be there. We got to be there. I said, well, no, that would take $10,000. The booth alone is $4,000. We'd have to fly people in. We could never do this. So Sue and Al particularly were not dissuaded. In fact, that very soon then bought the booth. It was $4,000 raised among all the supporters of Boston 911 Truth. And we went there. Eric was there. I was there. Raul was there. And Al was there. And that's the background behind me. That's our booth. And it was very successful. And so we went again the next year after raising the additional needed funds. And this third time, we weren't going to be pussyfooting around. So indeed, we were able to raise the funds. And guess what? The NFPA, who had been grumbling, to us and on the sides. Nevertheless, not only did they let us purchase this booth, the third year in a row, they gave us an additional 10-foot by 10-foot booth. So now we got a 20-foot booth. Gene's going to start sharing his screen and show you where and how and what it looked like and some of the photos. But not only that, we found out that this year you could actually purchase a position in the theater on the expo floor for $1,000. And we say, oh, should we do that? I don't know if we can raise it again. Well, guess what? We did. So we're all very excited to show up, and the firefighters set it up because Gail and I were speaking at the Red Pill Expo. So we missed the first day, but these guys, you guys got to tell us what happened. Who wants to start?
Well, I could start with a pretty interesting story. When we came in and set up our booth, we noticed we were right across from the International Fire Journal. I think that was it. Fire Safety Journal. And the gentleman was a bloke. He had an English accent, and we thought, oh, this is going to be good because when Paul shows, there's going to be some kindred spirit, and this is going to be fantastic. And sure enough, they did. They hit it off. It's fantastic. Raul was running a little bit late. When Raul shows up, we're all geeked about it. Raul walks up and, hey, Duncan, and they embrace each other. And we're like, this is just fantastic. And from that, Eric, if you want to share what happened from that.
Yeah, it was one thing after another. It was almost like God, life, whatever you want to say, had a conspiracy going on to get us connected with the right people. So not only did he and Duncan hit it off, Duncan said, oh my God, we've got to do an article on this, and a 2-part article right away. And then later, it was a day or two later, there's another journal that's actually that Duncan used to work for, and it's it represents, I want to say 4 or 6 magazines, ones that I read as a firefighter, one's International Firefighter. So they have, between the two of them, they know each other, they like each other, they have huge audiences, and they are both begging Protecting All Protectors Alliance to do articles for them because they want to address this. They realize the need. And I think it was Raul said to him, he goes, well, this is going to be controversial. And Duncan was like, perfect.
Lucky us.
Wow.
So here you can actually see, this is Duncan's table, and he was right across from us.
Well, yeah, there's our table straight ahead.
It's to the right. The books, yeah, there you go on the right.
Yep.
Lower
So
right.
he was looking at us the whole time, and fantastic. There are the 2 theaters. We were in theater 2, or those guys were in theater 2. It was just
One guy who liked us from the NFPA said that our event right here was the most well-attended of theater event on the expo floor the entire 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a half an hour to present, and all 4 of us presented. We started out with Raul Angulo, captain, former captain at the Seattle Fire Department. And Eric, tell us what he had to share.
Well, Raul, to me, how would I say it? It's so perfectly orchestrated because Raul was given, and he doesn't play it up as much as we can for him. Since 1980, I just looked it up the other day. Since 1980, there had been 3 editions. Raul was given in the first 3 editions of what's called Engine Company Fireground Operations. So it's a textbook written. It doesn't mean departments have to follow it, but it's the national standard. So he worked with NFPA in that, and he was invited to write the 4th edition. So the first author had written the 2 editions. There had been one other author, and then Raul was the 3rd author, basically, since 1980 to be given the honor of writing that, of all the fire officers in the United States. So that's huge. And Raul went into that a little bit, and he talked about Protecting All Protectors Alliance and how we had challenged him to relook at this, because what he added, which was great, was he added a high-rise firefighting chapter, which the other books had not had. So when he did that, he takes his job really seriously, always has, and so he said, if I'm writing this book, I've got to make sure it's accurate. And so when we challenged him, he's like, at this point, once he looked at the different Paul's documentary and looked at the Alaska report and everything else, he realized, no, this is crap, basically. And we have to bring this up. We've got to challenge the NFPA because if it's true that fire brought it down, which he doesn't believe it has either, then I have to change my entire book. Otherwise, I'm doing a massive disservice to the firefighters in the country. So he's, in a way, the perfect guy to bring this message that we have to look at this again, don't run from it. And what he and Paul are doing, I think, and Tony even too, and are challenging us, and it's landing in me more that we need to be more direct, like with NIST and everything else, and not just beat around the bush like, oh, maybe it was something else. No, it wasn't fire. It was something, it's this. And get more clear with that, because that will help the firefighters in this country realize that buildings don't collapse from fire. High rises don't, type 1. And that has been an impact. I know from firefighters I knew personally that our attitude changed after 9/11. And it's time to set the record straight, you could say, and Raul's all about that.
Jean, can you show a picture of the standing room only again for the theater?
Let's see. I think yes.
Gene was Johnny on the spot the entire time. We had other volunteers too. Diana Castillo showed up. Gene, after the presentation, Gene's holding up DVDs, and we encouraged them to come and get a DVD and take one home. This is Calling Out Bravo 7, the most incredible documentary made of Building 7 by firefighters, for firefighters, and the filmmaker is with us in the car. I think for me, he's over there. And Paul also spoke. Tell us what you said, Paul, from during your presentation there.
Okay, I'll try my best while I'm negotiating city traffic. Yeah, so I started off by basically setting the scene about how important and how valid the perspective of firefighters are in all of this, because over the last several years, I've shown the raw video of 7 coming down, and I made the point that I'd shown it to them without introducing historical context, so that it might be considered in isolation without any prejudice to the day. And that over those several years, having shown it to many experienced firefighters of all different ranks, they almost unanimously and consistently agree that it doesn't make sense to say that that was caused by fires. I then went into doing a very brief and to the point breakdown of what the fires were in the building, how insignificant they really were in the context of the structure that they were in, and then just choosing my lanes right. And then talked about the water supply, because NIST were adamant that the reason the fires were a problem was because there was a lack of water supply to fight them, which was just nonsense. And the research in my film identifies how nonsensical that statement or claim is. So I went through that, and then I very quickly went into the I've gone the wrong way. Went into the free fall, and how the free fall is very, very significant, and one of the most important points to consider when looking at this from a practical point of view, really. Yeah, and then I handed over to Richard, who went on into Alaska study. So my job was quite easy, really, because the evidence is so bloody obvious and so easy to identify. It was just getting it all in the time frame in a way that you could do the evidence justice. So it was a fairly snappy presentation, but it still took me probably about 12 minutes to get through it all. Yeah.
And
apologies.
Brilliant.
Apologies. Say again?
Brilliant. Brilliant and bloody obvious.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
but it is. And the more time you spend pondering this information, the more bloody obvious it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
and
like
for
Raoul
everybody.
said,
Go ahead.
Raoul said that when Paul speaks, the British accent adds 25 points to his IQ. So it kind of overwhelmed everybody there.
That's so true. And the
yeah.
other, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I wish I had 25 points IQ now, because I've got myself lost in Leeds.
It's a small country. You're safe.
Yeah.
Then we presented the Halsey study, University of Alaska at Fairbanks, who spent 4 years studying the collapse of World Trade Center 7. And guess what? They found a different conclusion than NIST. In fact, they completely pulled the rug out from underneath NIST, claiming or finding that fire did not bring the building down, that the temperatures were not hot enough to cause weakening of the steel or even to move it. And they proved that several key structural elements were eliminated by NIST in their computer model in order to get it to fall down the way they said it would. But here is the Alaska study on the left, which comes down exactly like the video in the center. Why? Because they removed all the columns in the building at once, simultaneously. And so then I turn it over here and introduce one of our key figures in this movement. If you want to go back there, Gene,
Yeah.
Mr. Eric Lawyer. Tell us about what you shared, Eric, in real time.
Here, I think playing it's better than me telling you. I guess I could tell you. What do you guys prefer? I mean, in a nutshell, I just propose that we're at a crossroads, and it's time to choose. And this is a hard thing because we're challenging the official story, and we're asking the NFPA to perform a formal review or and really look at this so that if it really was fire, that we change the fire codes, the strategies and tactics and all that. And if it's not, then we need to look into the investigation process for major fires because it's corrupted. I used the word integrity and something else besides corruption, but it was pretty clear. And then left it with the same team. Really, my intention was to drive home that we're on the same team with the NFPA because they've been around for over 100 and I want to say it's 120 years or something. It's crazy, 1896 or something. They've been around since the 1800s, and they were originally a sprinkler. They were there to ensure sprinkler standards because in Boston, did you guys know this? Boston's where it started.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was the sprinklers that they had basically five different ways to do sprinklers, and it was just creating too much confusion. So the NFPA was created to create standards on sprinklers initially, and then they realized, hey, we need more standards than sprinklers. And so that's where they were, and their mission's always been about public and firefighter safety. And so it was pretty easy to call them in, I guess you could say, that, hey, we're on the same team. We're not here to make you wrong, but we're here to join forces with you, and we need to address this. So that's kind of where we left it.
Yeah,
I think
because we
that
did.
was very
Go ahead.
powerful because the mainstream tends to try and divide us all, saying that you're in this camp or that camp and blah, blah, blah. And to start right out, that really struck me as extremely powerful. We're all on the same team. And I appreciate that so much, Eric.
Mhm.
Lastly, Eric had shared the petition, which anybody can sign. Anybody watching this after the fact, if you just go to protectingall.org/petition, and we are up to 384 signatures.
Thank you, Gene.
Mhm.
How did you do that? Like you made it go up 100 in a day. Just keep
I
doing that every
was
day.
I was vigilant across social media for a couple days there. Yes.
Wow,
Yay. Thanks, Gene. Well,
For
tell
those,
us about this petition, Eric.
yes.
well, for me, the petition, it's, how would I say it? The NFPA is, I can feel them, you could say, because I've talked to several people connected with them. And like, the one lady, I'm not going to name names on this call, but it said, there's some of us that want you here and there's some that don't. And in a way, they're in a very politically challenging position. So the more we can show them their support beyond just a few of us that are concerned, but show that there's significant support, the easier it's going to be for them to do something about this. So I almost feel like our job or duty is to build this support, and show them that, hey, this is beyond anything political, and really you want to be on the side of, how would I say it? I don't want to say right, but that's kind of what I'm saying. You want to be on the side of doing the right thing, and NIST does not, and you can. So let's support you in making that decision clear for your organization, because I'm imagining there's probably, still a split camp, and how do we help them unify on this?
So the petition itself calls upon the NFPA to initiate a formal review of the NIST report. I don't know why it took us 3 years to come up with this, but it was so obvious, and we had to all hack it around together for an hour or two on a call to come up with this simple language. Tell us the dilemma, the quagmire that we're trying to resolve.
It was longer than a couple hours. We came up with the idea, but then it was a long process with feedback from everybody, almost everybody on this thing. So this is a great example of teamwork and doing this. What we're bypassing, and I do get it, like last year in Vegas, I talked to two of the board members from the NFPA, and they were like, why are you doing this? And shared with them why. And they said, well, we have a process for this already. And you just go blah, 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 go here and submit something. But I knew in they help me get more clear in that moment. They don't want to believe what we're about. They actually challenge it, and they're really strongly standing with the official story. But what it helped me see was really our mission those first 2 years was awareness. We're not here to play their game where they put us in a box and say just fill out this form. It's like those old things when you're a kid, like here's the complaint form. It's this tiny little piece of paper in a little box, you put it in and file your complaint. Like, no, we're not going to do that and disappear. So it made me more clear, like, hey, we're raising awareness. And then this year I feel like it was just meant to be. It became clear that we needed to do something else because Raul, I remember, kept saying we need to challenge them with a new investigation. And then it came up like, well, an investigation's expensive and who's going to pay for it, because they're not going to volunteer to step up and pay for something like that. And how do you even do it? Because you're going against that. So this just kind of organically unfolded. And I think it's a great approach. It's basically and respectfully requesting is the language we used, the National Fire Protection Association to formally review the collapse of this building, because their process is, what I learned, is when these investigations come out, they do look at the investigation and what codes need to be upgraded. So it's not, what I also learned was it's not just NFPA board members or people like that. It's an entire process with multi-stakeholder perspectives. So they're looking, from sprinkler companies, from firefighters, from different things. They're looking at all the different perspectives and going, what do we need to upgrade with building codes, with strategies and tactics and that kind of thing. So at some level, they made the choice to ignore, this is my personal opinion, they made the choice to ignore NIST completely because they didn't really change anything. So in a way, to me, what that was saying is, hey, this is crap. And we're not going to change any of our codes, but we're also not going to call it out because we see, and in a way, I'd say they were scared. This is really political and we don't want to challenge you officially. So we're just going to ignore it and pretend like it didn't happen. And what we're doing in a respectful way, but in a way they can't ignore, especially the more momentum we gain, we're bringing it to the public consciousness and saying, why wasn't this addressed in a way that changed something? So we do need to look at it. And our two options are, we go with it was fire, then all these codes need to change and strategies and tactics. And if it wasn't fire, we need to change our investigation process and look at that.
Eric, were there any board members at the theater that you were in, and did you make any contact with them?
Not that self-identified this time. The last 2 years, there were several that self-identified, but none this time. I didn't have. Did you, Richard or Gene? Did you see Gene
Other than
Paul?
Joseph, no.
Yeah,
Joseph's just a coordinator.
Joseph's not a board member.
Right.
Joseph's
No.
with
But we
promotion.
were so delighted to have his support, his incredible emotional and mental support. He was very aware of the issue. He was the one who told us that our presentation in the theater was the most highly attended. So it was pretty cool to get that. What about the conversation with a couple of the key fire protection engineers? Without
Are you
naming.
asking me? Are you asking me?
I think so.
Give me a nudge reminder of who we're talking about.
Well,
somebody-
one gentleman was talking about diesel fuel fires, and another gentleman
Oh, yeah.
kind of said, "Yeah, we got a problem here."
Well, there was a lot of interesting things, and I'm not going to name names. There was an FDNY captain that shared a lot, and he still wanted to hang on to the official story, but he softened, and we ended up as a team, so several of us talking to him, spending, I'd say, almost an hour with him, and so that was really interesting. But the one that got me the most, just to see the level of cognitive dissonance is the best way to put it, was our time in that presentation was so precise. They literally shut off the mic like I think 10 seconds or 20 seconds after you were done, Richard, saying where to pick things up and we'll answer questions at the booth. It was like, Mike, cut off, next one, go. So it was like, it couldn't have been more perfect. So we couldn't answer questions there. But when we went back to the booth, a guy followed me and he came back and he really wanted me to understand, because he heard me say, if you listen to the end of my talk, I said there was no physical evidence used. And I'm like, can you even begin to understand this? This is like, it makes like, this is so like unbelievable and horrendous for the first and only time ever, and they use no physical evidence. So he came back to the booth to tell me that NIST actually did use physical evidence and that they did determine this. And I was as respectful as I could be, but my brain was going, are you kidding me right now? And so I asked him, I said, have you read NIST frequently asked questions? Have you talked to them in any way? Because I have challenged them personally, and the frequently asked questions, they finally admitted they used no physical evidence. So they themselves say no physical evidence was used. So what are you referring to? And he goes, well, they probably didn't want to talk about it publicly. And he might be right. It might be like they did use physical evidence and there's like no way in hell are we going to present this because we're screwed. But he didn't, he could not let in what just landed in his lap. And so he just kept resisting. And I just kind of left it as, we both did, like, we're just going to respectfully disagree. And he wasn't willing to get emotional, I would say. And he wasn't willing to use, to listen. I don't want to say listen to me, but he was just making up a story as he went to justify his beliefs. So my sense was most people that left there, it was hard for them to deny, and only a few were still in that spell of like, I'm going to make something up to deny this. But my sense was watching the people crying and the different things happening was like something like it landed in a way, in a collective, in a bigger way than I've seen before.
Tell us about Tony here, Eric.
Tony here. Well, Tony, like we talked about yesterday, Tony was really good at being softer with people. So as we shared yesterday, like Richard was the one that last day where we were really, doing the presentation, everything else, was the one hook on, and then you'd pass it off to me or someone else, and then I'd pass it off to someone else. So depending on if the person was just there to get information and they did want to sign it, they're already on our team, then we just do that. If they want to talk more, we talk more. But the ones that were really on the fence that weren't clear yet, that's where it really took the team using everything, the science mind and the emotional heart and everything else, and helping them see that. And so Tony was really good at just being softer with people. And right there, yeah, that was a great one. He was just really good at helping people see that, hey, this is hard and we're here, you can reach out, whatever. And I don't know how to say it, just Tony's got a way that just connects with people.
We had two fire captains there. Tony was one of them from Kansas City. Everybody's retired now. But then Captain Raul Angulo, you see on the right there in the flowery shirt. How was his style? Paul, you had some conversations with people with Raul there.
Call back.
There you go.
He's driving his daughter home. I didn't see if he came back yet.
Yeah. So how was Raul's style there?
Raul's style was
there he is. There's
great.
That's his style right there, sitting down.
I want to learn how to do more what he does. He would tune in, like he'd hear, because he let me be, before you got there, Richard, I was the torpedo or the dart, you could say, that would casually go up to people and, have you heard of this, or blah blah blah. Raul would kind of hang back and until he heard his name, and as soon as he heard his name, then he'd come walking up. And what he's so good at is being so real and funny at the same time. So he would just kind of tune into, what does this person need? Something more serious and who I am, with writing the textbook, or do they need something funny? And one of the things that was different this year than the other years was Raul's, he's fluent in Spanish and he's Mexican. And it's not his primary language, though. I asked him because he's so good at it. I'm like, is this your primary language? He said no. But there were a lot of firefighters and fire protection people from Mexico, Colombia, several countries that were Spanish speaking. So he even did an interview with Diana in Spanish, which is the first one he said he's done over anything like this. So he's opening the international borders of getting it in a multiple language or a different language. So it was great.
And there's his book, Engine Company Fireground Operations. He's working on the other half of firefighting, which is ladder company fireground operations. He's the author of the NFPA sponsored book on the subject. It's a textbook. He says it's got to be accurate. I got to be able to trust NIST. And yet the Halsey study, as well as a lot of the other evidence, completely pulls the rug out from underneath NIST. So Raul was invited by these two separate publishers who had booths at the event to write a series of articles. So we've got a series of articles each in two different the major magazines of this industry. So we can't top. We could top it. I can imagine a few ways, but this is huge. So this is the third was like we hit a home run here on this third year of this event, and Raul's going to be writing those starting next week or two. So it's fantastic.
And just for fun, to address the whole Hawaiian shirt and that, when you said, Raul, do you have another shirt? Raul's known, just like Chief Brunacini from Arizona, from Phoenix Fire, for the shirts. And Duncan, across the way on our presentation day, when Raul wore a white shirt, it was a Tommy, I think it's all Tommy Bahama shirts, and he's wearing a white shirt, but it's got designs on it. Duncan came over to him. He's like almost fainting. He's like, oh my God. Like, he'd known Raul for years too, not as long as I have, but he's known him for years. And he goes, that shirt right there. He goes, I have never seen Raul so dressed up in my life.
Oh, that's great.
Well, there's one person I regret not thinking of to invite for this call, and that's Diane Costello.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
she'll pop on if you send her an email. I'll do that myself.
Yes, I don't have her contact information. Thank you.
I'll do that. And Diane came and volunteered for a couple of days with us. And also Gene, I mentioned, but behind the scenes, the people who gathered all the stuff that we had to purchase, the tables, the tablecloths, the rugs, everything, the banners. If I'd sent it to Justin Harvey, and he brought all this stuff, met the firefighters out there 4 hours early. There's Diana. She's from Miami. And then Chris Cerullo and Susan Clark also brought all kinds of stuff, tables and equipment for us. So we just want to thank all of those wonderful people who helped so much to put this together. It really is a team of 12 people that put all this together.
It's an
I had a question for Eric.
collaboration. Yeah. Go ahead, Al.
Eric, I don't know who it was that was asked, there was a comment made that you weren't there, meaning at 9/11. And I remember somebody handled that pretty well. I don't know if you recall that conversation.
This year?
Yeah, down in Orlando.
Huh. No, I didn't hear about it at all.
It wasn't you. Okay.
Well, I mean, it might have said that, but I didn't, that message didn't come
Yeah,
to
I
me.
mean, that was the objection.
Oh, I do. You are reminding me. It wasn't, I didn't hear it. I can't remember if it was Tony or if it was
I think it
Paul.
was
that might have
Tony.
mentioned it. It was Tony. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I've never publicly said I was there other than in the weeks following, which I was. But I wasn't there when it happened. So, oh, and I think Tony and Paul had a response to that even.
That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah, I don't remember it
I
though.
think it was
Paul comes back on. He
pretty
probably
interesting response.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had a question about where do you see Papa going from here? I mean, this is a big moment in the Papa movement, and what do you think the next step's going to be? I know you, as far as getting published, is huge, but have you had any further thoughts about where?
I have. I'd say we're all in an inquiry over that. My personal opinion is this, how would I say it? It's what I've said since the beginning almost. I'm not after trials and justice and all the things that a lot of people are. I'm here to help create awareness and change a new, like, trust humanity that we have a new model, because the model we're in is broken. So the more we go into courtrooms or NFPA or whatever and say, hey, you need to do the right thing, we're empowering the very thing that's corrupted. So I think there's something new that wants to be birthed out of this, and it's going to take enough of us that are seeing the problem and going yes, and can let go of the anger, because I'm not saying let go of it, use the anger as fuel. But I had a mentor ask me this one time, and he said, what's more important to you, justice, punitive justice, basically, somebody being punished, or humanity learning how to be self-responsible, work together, and be guided from something bigger than themselves and a government? Because you can't have both. So choose which one's more important. And I'm like, well, if you put it that way, it's the latter one. So I think we have an incredible opportunity as Papa to model what that could look like. And it's not an organization that comes in and saves the day and we go after NIST or whoever and do that. Not saying that's not what's going to happen, but that's not to me, that's not the primary motivation. It's doing what we've been doing here. People that care about humanity, care about the corruption, like, hey, this is not okay. And so then, well, how does it look if we do it differently? Because everything that we've seen does get corrupted when it becomes so powerful. So how do we do it different? And that's where I want to see energy going. And that's relationships and connections I've been building for the last more than 10 years now, are people who have been experimenting with ways to do that. And it looks different than what we're used to. So I don't know where Papa's going to go. I hope it goes to a place where we as a team embody self-responsibility, body dynamic, what I call dynamic sourcing, dynamic leadership, which means it's the way we used to operate on my crew in the fire service, and special forces does this too. Like, special forces is a great one to use as an example. They have the military structure when they're not on operations, but when they go into an operation, what they're using is what they call it dynamic leadership. I call it dynamic sourcing. What I mean by that is, when you're responding to something that's really intense from life, it's not one person that always has the best answer and gives a top-down answer. That's the old way. That's the way, we did it in World War II and all these other things. But in reality, when you're in those situations, I had a friend say it this way the best. If you don't know who the source point is, the one that's got the best information for us right now, if you think it's you and no one else is looking to you, it's probably not you. But if you don't think it's you and everyone else is pointing to you, it's probably you. So the more we can learn to go, hey, there's a better way, there's a different way, and it's not from authority, it's not from tyranny, would be a better way to say it, and it's not from I'm in control, so I'm making the decisions. I want to see, and I'll finish with this. I want to see Papa being open, which we're doing. I can feel it, to something new, and at the same time, we're coming together because we have a shared purpose, a shared care. So that thing I said about same team, same mission. Now let's get this job done. And what I want to change in people's minds and realities, the biggest problem I see, and this has been conversations with many mentors, is we have the United States government, we have major institutions, they get locked into being the decision maker and all that. If we can help people see, if we can have a language and a collaboration, understanding and training, we only come together when life wants us, we deliver the job, and then we're done. So if you look at most fires, I said I was going to finish, but I will finish with this now. What I really appreciated about the fire service after I left it, I couldn't see it while I was in it. I did not see it until I left, and I started doing 9/11 Truth and working with nonprofit groups, you could say. And I just saw the massive headbutting, the massive confusion, and there was no coordination. And it was like, this is insane. So what I realized was I always thought the fire department was good at putting out fires, at preventing and putting out fires. It's not. What it's really, really good at, and the world can learn from, is it's probably the master in creating new organizations on the fly and addressing the situation that's in front of them and then dissolving it. And what I mean by that is unless people are in the fire service, they don't get this. We, for every single fire we go to, anything more than 1 unit response, we create an entirely new organization. So we're literally declaring the name of it. So we'll call like Folsom Command or whatever the street it's on. So we declare the organization. We put out a request to the other units responding what we need, and we can bring together a 200 person, like in Seattle Fire and some other bigger cities, we can bring together 200 people or more from the Red Cross, the police, the fire department, everything else, who've never worked together. They don't have to have worked together before. We can bring them together, address the situation, work with it, and then once it's done, we dissolve it, and the leadership for that organization is gone. It's no longer exists. If humanity could start doing that, and this is what I meant, John, when you sent that email and I wanted to respond to it, I am not talking about debates. I'm talking about we create what we had in the fire service that I couldn't see till later was we have a language. We have a way to collaborate together. We know we can bring together coordination system, communication system, and requests. So basically it's not orders. We're requesting this, we're requesting this, we're requesting this. And when we do that, it's beautiful to watch. And then that whole thing just dissolves. And we literally have language for that and say, basically, we send all the units home and say, if the chief at that time realizes it's over, he dissolves the organization. So that organization is completely dissolved. What that prevents is all the shadows that major organizations have. So it's like, that's where I'd love to see Papa, and not on a big scale, but just practice with this. Like let's not try to control it, but let's invite people in who are willing to be on the same team, the same mission, and can align and not bring in their own purpose and their own trying to take the energy, because that's the challenge. If someone's like, I've been 20 years in 9/11 Truth, and I think we need to go this direction, that destroys the whole thing. So we've got to get really clear as a team, what's our most pure purpose? And then when we achieve it, we're done. And that's hard for people to let go. Like, the organization's done when we complete our mission, but what is our mission? That's what we're still figuring out. So that was a long spiel, but that's where I'm at. Thanks, Al.
That was great, Eric.
So Diana Costello has just joined us. I wanted to welcome her. Thank you for joining us. And I know you were deeply involved in helping this project come to fruition, and they're on the floor and did a lot of videos.
Yeah, I had a good time being with such smart people, and I was very impressed with, the big exhibition they had, and that so many firefighters. Somebody told me that 50% of the firefighters suspect something about 9/11. So I made a bunch of videos, and I think that's a good way to get the word out. Like a lot of people are aware about Building 7 now.
Well, thank you for all your help. I understand you were pretty good working the floor too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'm used to that.
Yeah. So glad you joined the effort.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun.
Grateful.
I'll do it anytime.
Yeah, and just to toot her horn, she just stepped in like she'd been there forever and was willing to do whatever it took. So thank you so much, Diana.
Mm-hmm. So Eric, I one thing we didn't talk about yesterday, that I heard you got a little word on where the next NFPA convention was going to be.
They announced it, Las Vegas, Mandalay Bay, 2025. So it's back in Vegas.
I think Eric's ideas about organizational structure are excellent.
Yeah, very.
Really insightful.
I kind of want to see an animated video of exactly what he's envisioning. I don't know if that's possible, but I kind of pictured one in my mind as he was speaking of what this new collaborative effort could look like.
I've actually done a presentation several years ago once I saw what the fire service was doing. So I do have one I can do. I'd love to update it, but yeah, I already have it, and it has helped a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah, I'd love to see that. That sounds fantastic. Yeah. Sometimes I tend to say, oh, this is tree huggy, new worldish, new agey stuff talk, and can't really wrap my head around that. It's utopia, that's not reality. But the way you talk about it, it's visual. You can dream it and see it, and I appreciate that so much.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that should be said is at the very end, Richard and Eric had said, hand out some of these DVDs, and they gave me a stack of 50 DVDs. And right after the end of the presentation, I stood up and I walked to the back, and they went out like hotcakes. I gave away all but 2 of the DVDs. Everybody was very receptive. There's Diana handing out flyers as well, and they took them all.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you were being pushy at all. They just were coming to you, right?
No, just put my hand out and they took them.
That's amazing. That is.
Do we have a count on how many people actually signed up? I didn't hear that in the beginning. I'm sorry. Anybody?
I think it was 158. It's less. It's a little bit more than half of the last 2 years, but this year it was way slower. The first 2 days, and the third day that was busier, but we didn't have the numbers that we did the previous. But as I said yesterday on the call, is I feel like the quality of the impact we had was bigger this year, but we had less numbers.
And those were scanned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be getting the information.
Yeah, as soon as we get that presentation video, I think, and I don't know, maybe we should talk about that if we send something before we have it, but it'd be good to be able to send everybody that presentation.
Yeah, when could we expect that,
Richard, you're muted or something.
Oh, I see what the problem was. Nobody was listening to me in there. You
You
guys. We hired a videographer and to record the presentation, and he's working on it right now. We've given him what he needs, and he's going to produce it. We're going to email it to all 158 people, and then that came this year, but also to the 500 people that we have on our list, and reminding them that we hope we saw them also here at the NFPA conference this year. And if not, definitely watch this presentation, because we had 30 minutes to put out our message to everybody. And then we're going to try to get that message out even beyond this 600 plus group of people in the fire protection industry. All of them are just that, which is just pretty exciting. But we can also get mailing lists of people that have come to this convention, because there's 5,000 of them, right? We only signed up 158 this year. But we can email them then the half-hour presentation and some of our other important information, and ask them to sign this petition. So we're going to build on what we've done, and get our numbers really going. I think this 20-foot wide booth was so successful that we really need to try hard next year to duplicate it. It was a complete winner because those firefighters like Raul, who everybody there, well, many people there knew of him. He was the author of the book. Next year, 20-foot booth. Yeah. So it was all together well more than $15,000. Even though they gave us, and that's with them giving us the second 20-foot, 10-foot by 10-foot. Chris, you had a question.
Yeah, question. When Eric or Richard or both of you, when people were resistant and to kind of the obviousness of your stance, what were the rationales, or what were the defenses that you found yourself having to try to break through? People have a way of saying, "Oh, yeah, yes, but," and here's why you're wrong. And what did you have to kind of push against or push through?
I noticed that some people were afraid. They were like, they know, but they don't want to hear it. They just said, yeah, no, but they want to get away as possible because they're afraid of, getting their job implicated or something.
In terms of percentages, what I found is that half of them didn't know about 7 and were very interested. And we signed all of those types up. I'd say another 20% said no thanks, just kept walking by. And even after I showed them building 7, sometimes if I was able to get them to stop, I'd say, okay. And when I'd ask them if they'd like to learn more, is all we asked really, and be a fly on the wall between this conversation between NIST and the NFPA. Some of them, maybe 20% would say, no, I'm good. And they would keep going. I would call that resistance, but I just let them go. I didn't take that on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the ones that had a reason why, to me, it was almost always something that NIST or, the public media had said at some point. So it was diesel fueled things. It wasn't enough water. It was all the things we've heard. So they were just parroting what they've been told. And part of the reason when I just saw that last picture, I realized the numbers I think were a little bit lower too, because I was holding, and me and others were too, was what NFPA asked was not to keep pressing people. So if they were a no, it was just a clear okay, and just left it at that, versus where before, like the last 2 years, I think we stayed on them more. But I think it's fine just to be softer with them, because they,
Yeah, I was getting cocky last year. I ran one guy down about 40 feet away from the booth. Turns out he was an NFPA guy, and we got a call, Eric and I, that we had to attend to. He said, "Don't do that again. Stay in your booth." Now, Did we stay in our booth, Eric?
Way better than the previous years.
Yeah.
It didn't stop Richard from yelling down the corridor, "Did you know about the third worst structural fire?" And
Yep.
It had a big booth too. So it actually, with the amount of people we had working it actually was a positive in one way, because it made people think they didn't there were several times where it was Raul, myself, it was just all of us, the team, but we'd sit on opposite sides of the table. So it looked like people are engaged because our team was so big. It's we got 8 or 9 people on the team there doing the same thing.
And sometimes they were just, go ahead.
Did you have a scripted comeback of any kind? In other words, prior to the convention, did you go over, the most likely scenarios that you were going to hear and then how to counter them? I'm just curious.
Not really. I think we did a pretty good job of addressing it in the moment. And there, like Paul and I have talked about this, was being able to tell, does someone just not know, or are they in an emotional cognitive dissonance thing where they don't need to be told the answer, they need to be heard. And so that, I think that was more powerful than just having standard comebacks.
And it was fantastic to watch when one of these 4 firefighters saw somebody was, starting to get involved, the other one would start making a walkover, and then there were three, and then all four of them were working on the person, and it was fantastic. And those conversations ended up lasting 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes.
Especially this one you're looking at right here.
Yeah.
And Tony is here, just joined us. And also Paul is back, or was, and where'd he go?
I'm here.
Oh, there's Paul. And
I'm
so
here as well.
we're showing
just-
you guys on the screen. I don't know if you can see, but we're tell us what's going on here, and the question that we're trying to answer is, how did we address the resistance that we were met with?
Do you want to go first, Tony? I need to find somewhere to pull over a bit better.
You there, Tony?
I am here. I'm in the back of an Uber. I'm sorry, I've been rushing to get on the phone call, but I'm trying to remember his name. He was a captain.
We say first names?
We're not going names with these guys, just in public.
Yeah, thank you.
So he's with the FDNY, or was.
Yeah, he was a captain with the FDNY at the time, and now a battalion chief. He just retired, and he was rather emotional, as you can imagine, but also inquisitive, and inquisitive enough to have a very, very, very long conversation with all of us.
And as you'll see in some of these photos that all, whoops, went the wrong way. He stuck around for a good half an hour. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Here he was. As I go back through and I pan over, you'll see him still over in the corner, still talking to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
One of the
interesting gentleman.
One of the take homes for me regarding speaking to some of the people who were actually at 9/11 was that they talk about their impressions of what was going on based upon what they could see when they were in the location, and from what other people were telling them. Being firefighters, we know from being at incidents that actually being at an incident doesn't tell you an awful lot about the incident as a whole. You get glimpses of certain aspects of it, and you will hear things from other people which will add to your impression of what's going on, but they aren't necessarily accurate. You're just basically getting snapshots from different perspectives, from different angles, and you will later go back from an incident. The more complicated the incident is, the more relevant this is, and you will find out that things weren't as you originally thought based upon your restricted viewpoints. Now, talking to some of the people who were at 9/11 at the NFPA, and I don't mean to dismiss their experience and what they saw, but they don't match up with the whole picture when it's all considered from a evidential standpoint later on, when it's all pieced together like a jigsaw puzzle. So like this individual that we were talking to here, he obviously, like anybody that would have been there, was traumatized by the event, found it very difficult to talk about, and he had ideas and his own observations that didn't match up with what we're told when all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle put together. Like his impressions of the fire in Building 7, for example, were that it was a lot worse than it actually was. Yet when you go and examine NIST's account of the fires in 7, and they're going to basically, to fit their narrative and to fit their hypothesis of fire-induced collapse, they're going to make the fires out to be a lot worse than they actually were, and they do try to do that. Yet even their accounts are of no more than normal office fires. They were very modest fires, and in the context of this structure that they were in, they were nothing of anything that couldn't be tackled by firefighters. And even if they hadn't been tackled by firefighters, there were nothing that the building couldn't handle due to its highly specified engineering and structure. So my take home from speaking to people that were there is that even though you were there, it doesn't mean that you have the best and most accurate account of what actually went on. And that might be controversial, and I might get some flack for saying that, but that's the reality, and I don't mind saying it as I see it. And yeah, so sometimes you can be at an incident and you can come away from an incident and read about it in reports and breakdowns later on, and you'll get a completely different perspective, and you go, do you know what? It didn't appear like that when I was there, but okay, I bow down to the better, more circumspect or more detailed analysis that you might be privy to later on. A simple example could be you go to a car accident, and you'll think that a car was traveling in a certain direction and it's hit another car that was also traveling in a certain direction. And you'll come back and you'll find out from an investigation that, based upon the data and the evidence, that you completely got it wrong. But what you saw, it seemed to make sense at the time. So it's not always an accurate analysis based upon what you see from snapshots, what you see when you're at an incident. If you're too close to the coalface, sometimes you can't make a proper and finite analysis that's accurate and dependable, if that makes sense.
Does trauma play into this, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. And sometimes when you go, and one of the main reasons that Building 7 wasn't tackled probably will be due to trauma. From my analysis, if I was to put it into a nutshell, the reason that 7 wasn't tackled has nothing to do with practicalities. It's to do with politics, to do with people in suits and ties getting in the way of firefighters from doing their job. And Richard's interviewed Captain Patterson, who has put some very interesting flesh on the bone regarding why there wasn't firefighting. Well, there was firefighting in 7, but it was curtailed early on because of alleged engineers saying that the building was going to collapse, and somehow they managed to predict this expansion of a number of beams pushing a girder off an inaccurately measured girder seat 5 hours afterwards, which was completely unprecedented. It's all complete nonsense. I don't know if you want to add to that, Richard, what Captain Patterson told you from his interview with you about why they didn't go into 7 and fight the fires.
Well, they were told that the building was going to come down on its own. They were told that an engineer had placed a transit on the side of the building and that there was a bulge. So they were concerned that it was going to come down. They were told not to go in and fight the fires. These were few, small, and scattered fires in this building. And as you know, no steel frame fire protected structures ever collapsed due to fire, especially these fires. And so we contrasted those with many other buildings, of course, on the billboard there. This is Captain Patterson, who had heard, he was walking away from building the North Tower with the chief Fox, who he had known of and met there, and they were together. They couldn't find anybody to help them because they had just most of them died in the collapse of the South Tower before they got there, and then in the North Tower after they got there. So they're walking toward Building 7, which was on fire, and this gentleman walked by, not a gentleman, but some kind of contractor, looked like, and he said, that building will be coming down in about 5 p.m. And Chief Fox and Patterson look at each other and they, WTF. They walk over to the building and they are interrupted from entering the building by a pair of military clad individuals, gray khakis, they described them, and long rifles and sunglasses, and who closed ranks upon their entry toward the building, and then said to these firefighters, this building's been secured, preventing them from getting any closer. Whereupon Captain Patterson saw over their shoulder the warden, the fire warden, meaning one of the occupants of the building who was designated as a as a fire in a problem, and says everybody's out, something like that. This is Captain Patterson as an activist 3 years ago, and Gene had run into him. Did you take this video, Gene?
Yes, he was actually carrying a little tag that said, "Did you know about World Trade Center 7?" Very outspoken, was not afraid to. He didn't shy away from anything.
No, there's nothing shy about this gentleman. He is really pissed off. He had been lied to. His brothers had been killed in the building. Oh, there's Catherine Waters.
Building 7. He just walks around with the sign.
And Les Jameson. We filmed him also for the upcoming film 9/11 Crime Scene to Courtroom, where we're bringing his testimony and that of a couple of dozen others before a special grand jury. And so we're working on that film now. But yeah, the story, there's so many stories. Another story if on that page is actually go down that one. Yeah, Patrick Dillon. He is a first responder who descended into the pile of the Twin Towers, finding down there molten metal flowing, and we didn't know about this until a couple of years ago. So he's telling his story of after that experience, being told to go into building 7, that building right there. There's guys in there, get some rest. So while he's in there with others trying to clear out their lungs and get their bearings again, this group they're in the lobby of building 7. This group of 3 battalion chiefs come in, trailed by 2 more differently clad paramilitary guys with black and black ski masks on, with Uzis rather than long rifles, which were in all likelihood AR-15s or M16s.
So he and Captain Patterson corroborated the story.
Yes, independently. They didn't even know each other. That's right. And so he is being told by the battalion chiefs, get out of here. They're going to pull the building. Well, that is the only other example of the use of the word pull that I've come across relative to this day. So they all had to get up and leave. And as he's walking further north, he turns around and he's with others, and he feels rumbling in the ground, and he then sees the building come down. And Patterson also heard explosions, concussive blasts, as he termed it, immediately before the building came down.
Richard, was this after Brian Jennings had been in the building or prior to?
Barry Jennings was in the building
Jennings,
about
sorry.
9:30 that morning. This was much later.
Much later.
I think I've got a timeline, but I don't remember. It's about noon or so. Maybe late. Oh, excuse me. The building came down at 5. So it was in the afternoon that they were kicked out of the building. And I don't know if there was how much of a time lag there was between the time they got kicked out and the building, hearing the explosions and seeing the building come down.
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to add to what Paul and Richard have said, but Paul, when he first brought it up, he's right. And how would I say it? There's an individual memory of a major incident or fire and a collective memory. So I can't remember I think it was a fire officer or whatever who ordered the testimonies of some of the firefighters from 9/11 to talk about the explosions and everything else, because they weren't doing it as part of the FEMA report or anything. And I believe the words he used was like, it's the memory hole, because if it doesn't get recorded, then the collective memory changes everything. And I had been on enough fires when I first started. We didn't do this as often. And it's what Paul's talking about. We would just have our individual and then our company stories about what happened. But if we were to talk to another company that was at the same fire, it was almost like it was a different response. Like, what are you even talking about? It's not even the same thing. And so Seattle, back in, I want to say it was the early 2000s, really started hammering what we call post-fire analysis. And so they bring the battalion, whoever responded to those fires, together so that we'd sit in a room together and we'd each be given the time to share our perspective so that together we could get a whole picture, because only then could we really learn from what happened and make upgrades as needed. And so a lot of times misunderstandings between crews, these guys screwed up, they didn't do this, or blah, 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 or this happened. Then you'd hear their perspective on why they did what they did. And you're like, oh my God, I never even thought of that. So it really helped us. And and Paul was talking about the guy that was at the presentation this year, and what I'll say is I've had to be humbled time and time again, like we all are, but me especially, I want to say, in a lot of ways, because I fought my lieutenant on the first day when he said, this is suspicious. He didn't trust what had happened. He's like, these didn't come down from fires. And I told him to leave the country. And the thing I would use was, because I went out to 9/11 in the weeks following, I used the fact that I was there even after it happened to say, I know better than you. So that's what's happening with a lot of these firefighters that were there. Not right or wrong, but in a way I felt it. I was justified. I saw the damage. You did not. You saw it on the news. So that's what we're dealing with too. And that's why I think the way, Paul and Roland and all them handled this guy, not handled, but worked with him that day on Wednesday or whatever day it was, Tuesday or Wednesday, was beautiful, because it was giving him the space to say, I do know what happened because I was there. But at the same time, Paul kept challenging him softly, like, and this, and this, and this. And that's what we're dealing with as a country, because the country's looking to the FDNY guys to go, hey, they knew they were there. But in a way, we need to challenge them softly and go, yes, and have you considered this kind of thing? So anyways, I just wanted to double stamp what Paul said about that. That's
if I could tail in on that as well, hats off. We got to pay respects to Dr. Graham McQueen, because he was the one that read through all of the oral testimonies and found 118 firefighters saying that they witnessed explosions. And even then, if I could just read a little bit here, some of these quotations, the above quotations come from a collection of 12,000 pages of 9/11 oral histories that, although recorded by the Fire Department in New York, FDNY, at the end of 2001, they were publicly released only until August 12, 2005. Prior to that date, very few Americans knew the content of these accounts, or even the fact that they existed. Why not? Part of the reason is the city of New York would not release them until it was forced to do so. Early in 2002, the New York Times requested copies under the Freedom of Information Act, but Bloomberg's administration refused. So the Times, joined by several families of victims, filed suit. And after a long process, the court released the records. And that's when Graham McQueen went through them and compiled them. And it's fantastic, because now we have this as the collective consciousness.
And now it's 186 that he's found since this early work in 2005 that he did. So yeah, absolutely incredible. And many of them, dozens of them at least, heard explosions well before, seconds, many seconds before the towers came down. That's an incredible, important aspect. But of course, we don't and didn't talk about the Twin Towers because everybody knows how the Twin Towers came down, right? Jet fuel and planes. But so this unique case study of Building 7 catches people off guard. Even though they may be emotional, many of them didn't even know about the third tower that collapsed. And so it's so easy with the three TVs we had. We simply point to the TV and say, did you know about the 7-second collapse of the Solomon Brothers building? And that's one way to say it. We say it many different ways. Did you know about the third worst structural failure? Many of them did not. And those who did, they'd say, Yeah, but they couldn't stop looking at it, right? Because it's mesmerizing. Everybody loves a controlled demolition. You can't turn your head away. It was like, that's what made it so easy. And once I captured their attention, I would say, well, this is a problem for Eric over here, a firefighter, and Paul and Raul and Tony, whoever I could see closest, because they're told by the NFPA guidelines to go into these buildings to fight this fire. Well, now, if NIST is correct in their assessment 7 years later, that this building came down by fire, normal office fires, then they have confusion in their midst. And then if he asked any question, I would then invite them to talk to Eric and or Tony or Raul or Paul. So it was a beautiful setup because Building 7 is the key. People can't get away from it. Can't take themselves away from it. Yeah.
Just want to let everybody know again about the petition. If anybody hasn't signed it since we started this, 2 more people signed up. So you just go to protectingall.org/petition and it'll take you right to the petition. And
show us the website first.
Yep. Let's go back to Protecting All.
Yeah. Because
how many signatures now, Gene?
We are up to 386.
Yeah.
So here's the website that we put together for the Boston event 3 years ago. Eric primarily led this effort. And we've got our efforts back in Boston 3 years ago, at Las Vegas last year. And we'll get another page up on our activities at Orlando, as well as the presentation when we get it here from our videographer. And who knows, maybe in 6 months or so, we'll start campaigning with a fundraising effort to go back to Las Vegas. I don't know why we're going back to Las Vegas, but that's where we're going, I guess.
Thank you guys that I was able to be part of that. It was truly humbling, and I just want to say it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Louder, Sue.
Go back to the Papa page.
Back to the Papa page. And then John has his hand up also.
Yeah. So just so you know, you can go to protectingall.org, and right next to home at the top menu is the petition. There's where you can sign.
John was one of our key supporters that made this whole thing happen. Thank you again, John, getting us to Orlando. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Richard, for the many updates while you were there, and the photos. I noted that you described the event, and particularly the presentation, as incredible and historic. But I know you and your over-the-top expressions, so that's kind of par for the course for you to be super excited. But it's when Sue said that this is the most, with big emphasis on most, but successful 9/11 truth action ever to date in history. Like, that is a statement of real gravity, I thought. So I wouldn't mind, Sue or Alfred, or anyone, if you who are real veterans and been around in this for a long, long time, how you size it up from your perspective, and what leads you to think of it in this way as a real breakthrough, a chip in the brick wall of denial.
Well, no one's at the helm here, and it's been an incredible collaborative effort. I do want to correct Richard on one statement. It was Boston, the NFPA Boston, the first one. The seed for that idea didn't come from Al and me. It came from Gene.
No, thank you. Well, real quick story on that. I got an email at work. I forwarded on to Richard and Sandra and Chris Joya, and I didn't think about Boston. Sorry. But then Sandra said, well, why did you send this to Alan Sue? And they sent it to Alan Sue, and Alan Sue sent it back to Richard, and it grew legs, and here we are.
Yeah.
So
So
fantastic.
a collaborative effort. I think we all deserve credit. Yeah, all of us, absolutely all of us. It was the collision of the good forces of the universe.
And when we got to Boston, there was one wonderful lady there named Jane Milliken, who hosted all of us in her house. Thank you so much, Jane. That made it possible, and so good to see you.
She's such a good hostess, really.
Yeah,
That
she's
was one
incredible.
of the most wonderful offerings that I can speak to. That I was so happy to do that, and would do it again if the opportunity comes up.
Yeah, if
Well,
you
I
move to
can-
Vegas, you can have us over at your house in Vegas.
I can
That's where
vouch
it's going to
for
be next year. We learned.
Oh,
I can vouch for Jane. She was the most amazing host I've ever had the privilege of staying with, and I still feel like your place is home, Jane.
oh,
Yes,
always.
very
Thank
much
you.
so. You're welcome. And really, I just really quick wanted also to not forget John and Beth Hargrove, because they're the reason we did not have to spend a lot of money on lodging for everybody. And the place they provided for us was amazing. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like high class, very nice.
We had
And I
4
know
condos.
they spent quite a bit of their own money on it too.
Yes, John and Beth, thank you guys so much. We made
Yeah.
us, there it is. There's the special home for these rogue firefighters who had so much fun and worked so hard. I can tell you, they work hard, and I can assure you they play hard too.
Get Paul's face. That's classic.
Yeah.
So
And so that you can see how expensive it would have been. It would have been 20 grand if we had to also secure accommodations in addition to all these other expenses, flights and all kinds of things we had to secure and take care of, and liability insurance. You have to buy a rug. They'll give you the booth, but you got to rent a rug for $500 to 10 by 10 rug to put down. So no, we had Gail thumbing through Orlando looking at Home Depot. We got a rug for $50 and then a second one. So we can save a lot of money, but still it's so expensive.
It was sticker shock for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the electricity.
What was it? $300
what?
for an extension cord or something ridiculous?
Well, $300 for
Oh, you froze.
or electricity just to be able to plug in our lights, and that was times
And
2.
we had to pay for electricity for the other 10 by 10 that they gave us too.
Yep.
That was not free.
No. And liability insurance in case the firefighters acted up.
Yep.
Again.
Again.
So the petition signers, are they going to be on the contact list for updates as well, or no?
Yeah, Eric had an insight awareness about that over at change.org. Eric, do we have access to contact them?
Yeah, we can give them updates, but we can't get their email. So I think what my sense was as soon as we have this presentation, give everybody the update. And then the big thing is Change makes it looks like the money's being donated to us, but it's being donated to them. So I've seen some bigger campaigns that make it really clear in their updates that if they want to contribute directly to the campaign, this is how they do it.
Okay.
Now, Ross is here. Ross has been an activist, a 9/11 activist in New York forever. He has a huge skateboard and all kinds of signs and shoes that with signs on them. He's a structural engineer and an electrical lighting designer. You haven't said anything yet, Ross. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment. And it's great to see you here.
Yeah, thanks, Richard, for acknowledging I'm here. And no, I just wanted to, I've been listening over the years to a lot of the different activism. It's gone on around New York City, centered around New York City, and go down to Ground Zero every anniversary. I've been through all the fire departments there in New York City, getting quite some interesting looks from them. Distributed flyers to them when we had the Lawyers Committee event up there in the north of Manhattan, telling them, that the firefighters were invited. So all the firehouses in and around Lower Manhattan and Midtown Manhattan got flyers from me, and I'm of course, if a firefighter, especially a New York City firefighter, were to want to come out of the closet and actually try to set the record straight like Patterson did. I was there the day Patterson was there. It was such a shock to see him at Ground Zero speaking the way he was speaking. A shock in the sense that it was so too good to be true that I thought, well, maybe he's some kind of a mole or some kind of infiltrator, but obviously he's the real thing. Richard got to meet him, and so there are people there. There are some resources. Pull the strings. If we can pull the strings and one of those loose thread that might just set the thread loose, because I do feel it's a very tight knit group of brotherhood there in New York City. And when I look in those doors and I'm on that skateboard and it's got all the memorabilia over all the years about 9/11 and the Twin Tower models on it, which they all recognize. You've got various generations now too. You've got a lot of these guys are retired or not even in the fire stations any longer. But of course the history has been passed down. So there's kind of this tight brotherhood that traditionally you want to keep your cards close to your chest, and it's only for certain people to know. Hopefully they'll, with time, I think it's becoming more and more attractive for them to realize, well, it's not convenient for me to be on my knees any longer. They forced all those firefighters, all of humanity, when the main part of the towers started to fall, when the demolition of the towers 1 and 2, long after the planes hit, when those towers shockingly came down the way they did, everybody in the world that was watching was brought to their knees. And I can't imagine any other kind of event, whether it's COVID or anything, that in the moment is going to send you down saying, oh my gosh, what is the world that we're living in, and how could this happen? And however it happened, I'm going to respect who's ever going to lead me out of this nightmare. And of course, the government that's their job. And we think it's their job to make us comfortable and to lead us out of to protect us and to lead us into the future. And, in America, especially, religion is secondary. It's our government. Tonight you've got this big debate going on, ridiculously publicized, and it's going to be the biggest event that's happened in the last decade or whatever on television. And that just shows you how bad things are. And of course, 9/11 truth and the Kennedy assassination and the other things you can point to, that's the disease. And we're suffering from that disease and those acts. And so I think the only way back is to be able to heal from those things. And the only way you're going to heal from it is to get them to acknowledge who did it. And just living in a world of lies is not going to be acceptable any longer. So firefighters are guys that the people will trust if they come out and say, we kept the truth from you as well, just like the government did. So I don't know who's in the government, if it's going to be a firefighter or a politician or an architect, registered architect, or a lawyer or a judge. I'm not, or if it's going to be a group of them, or if it's one individual. Somehow the thread is going to get pulled at some point that's going to acknowledge 9/11 is at the root of all of these problems. And if we're able to survive, it's going to be because we acknowledge that. So I think you guys are pulling on that thread. And you've been doing it in all those conventions, and people realize it. I mean, they definitely, when you get the looks and they run away and all that, they don't forget. I mean, this is, it's deeply ingrained. We all were put on our knees, and Pretty soon though, when the economy gets rough enough and when things just get too crazy for people, too many wars, too much dysfunction, people are gonna say, look, I can't stay on my knees any longer. I mean, I've been on my knees since September 11th. Then COVID brought all the liberals back down on their knees. Some people get up off and then they get back down on. But September 11th, most people never got off their knees. It was like, whatever the government says here, especially if they get, they're going to be challenged by somebody, and if the media doesn't acknowledge it, or if they say the people that challenge it are not legitimate, that's just not going to hold up any longer. When you see it all crumbling around you, and you say, look, I just decided I was going to stay on my knees and believe their science. And at some point, they're just going to have to say, I think I better stand up.
I'll tell you somebody else who stood up, Ross, and that is your counterpart in Boston, Lawrence Fine, who took it upon himself to help out and educate the firefighters. Lawrence, tell us about your activities up there in Boston.
We have the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy, the Department of Fire Services. I've shared PAPA literature. I approached all the fire departments in my local, around Hudson, Bolton, Stowe, Maynard. Pretty much the week after Chris Joya came out with this mutual request for mutual aid. So I've been pushing, sharing information pretty much since it's become available from fire personnel. Chris and Papa is it's just great to see what's happened this third year, and I'm looking forward to passing out, standing at the Department of Fire Services as classes start, or let out in the afternoon and handing out information, a flyer that Gene will be producing. So as soon as that's ready, that will get shared with both my local departments and the Department of Fire Services in Massachusetts.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And Gene, show us that flyer if you can. It's going to all of these firefighters in the Boston area. You guys are amazing.
I just want to add that I'd like to add that I will be adding a link to these conversations, the one that Gene had on the War Room last week, and this one here. So, I mean, Gene doesn't have to add these links, the links to Boston 911 or to his to the Papa site, but I will. I mean, it's just what goes on behind the scenes. The whole human aspect of what this is all about, how it was formed, how it was conceived of, and how it's developed. I think it'd be fascinating for these people to just see how human everybody involved is.
Mm. And this is the actual flyer card that we handed out to everybody we saw. So they had something to take home with them. They had a way to get back to the website. They got our mission. They got the NIST problem, the NFPA opportunity, and they were grabbing them.
Yeah, that's what I handed out as soon as Gene printed it. Or as soon as he produced it, I printed up a bunch and shared them in the area here.
Yeah.
So we have another activist who's been doing a lot of outreach to Canadians. Miles Flagg. He handed out 21 flyers to different 20 fire departments. Where? Calgary?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's going through chemo.
Yeah.
And nevertheless, he's out there, on his last breath, trying to wake up the world and the firefighters to 911. Miles, we appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
Do be careful with your health.
Miles here. I was just talking to Paul about him today. Is he here or no?
No, I think he's in the hospital right now. I'm not sure, but he was scheduled for a blood transfusion or transplant, I think.
He was stem cells transplant. Yeah.
Stem cells, right, for the leukemia. So he's had his uphill battles, but that doesn't keep him down. Just an amazing individual.
Just want to share that the FDNY firefighters, they aren't speaking out in New York, but they are receptive. Been there the last 7 years of ground zero and a bullhorn. And I had a time when 2 or 3 ladder trucks came by me and turned right in front of my truck at the corner of Vesey and what is that, Church and Vesey. And you can't see it in this one picture. They went by and I put up the peace sign, and the gentleman in the back put up the peace sign back at me. And they read my signs the whole way down the street. So they know. They just can't speak out because they're afraid of losing pensions and their livelihood and even possibly their lives. So,
and look at that T-shirt, the smoking gun of Building 7. Right on.
King of the memes.
Yeah.
I want to give a special shout out to you for going to Orlando, but also just being on the ready all the time. I mean, thank you for joining this call, because if I had to fumble around and look for any pictures, I'd be fumbling around till 8:30.
thank you for that. I want to thank Sandra, because without her, I wouldn't have gone. She said they have one extra spot. Who should go? And I said, Max, Trina. She goes, no, you. I'm like, what? Me? I didn't even think about going without her. And she goes, no, you should go. And texted Richard, and he said, yeah. So yeah, thank you guys. It really is they make you feel like it's a brotherhood. You just feel like one of the guys, and
yeah,
it was really neat. So
and Sandra has been coordinating our meetings for 3 years now, keeping Papa together, because the firefighters are busy really doing their thing. I'm busy doing my thing. Sandra is the mama that has corralled us all together through all of this. And
excellent presentations. They were really good.
Yes. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
One thing I would say, just to plant a seed, is for the first time, I think we're close to being able to go into firehouses and high-rise buildings and plant the seeds, asking them to sign the petition. So it's like, I don't know what that campaign is going to look like, but inviting them in and helping them invite someone else in, so we get something, viral going, but just planting that seed. And I don't know what it's going to look like.
Love it.
We're on it here.
Yeah, Papa calls are still going to be going on. So we're still in the planning stage for our next steps.
I'd like to say a quick thank you to all the Boston group for your support over the years, and for making it possible for us to go to Orlando this year, and our other supporters like John, etc. Thank you very much, because without you guys, it wouldn't happen.
It never would have started. So yes, thank you.
Oh, and definitely a thank you to Sue, the accountant, for all of this, because that's a nightmare, and there's no way.
Never a dull moment. Let's put it that way.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.